Okay, now this is a good sign. So now I'm further down that street. So you could see I was down that way and I came around, and now I'm in kind of the heart of the Eugene area. So this bank got some shit. Antifa gave them shit, so it's never quite recovered. But like, this store is back. It has stuff in it again. I don't know about this stretch along here, but I did want to bring up one of the good things is Summit Bank. Summit Bank, when I've looked into it, is solid. They are investing in small enough ventures that like anything that they brag about that they're financing, and they've taken over this whole thing. So all this had stuff in it, and Summit Bank has slowly expanded what obviously are more of its financial offices and such like that. So that's something that I could say, and I want to be fair. I wanted to do something. And then there's things like this, like Stonewood Construction. That's a very good sign that they're there, because Stonewood has increased its footprint as far as workers and contracts in the area, and which is just a very encouraging kind of thing. I have looked a little into Key Bank, but I have to look more into what they invest in locally. But Summit, especially when I started looking at their trends as far as stock goes, Summit has been very, very solid. So this is something I could say, like, the morale is low in the Pacific Northwest, but there's a solid economy maintaining. So that's a big deal. Like, that you want people having hope. And I found it interesting that this is one of the reasons why I even thought about this. And here's also a good sign. Look at that. Charles Schwab. So Charles Schwab is still maintaining here. Charles Schwab doesn't even have an office in San Francisco, California. So a lot of people who are like the city fathers of this area, a lot of the people that your money talks a lot in local politics, that's it. It's, you have Charles Schwab, San Francisco can't even maintain it. Now it's everything. It's how do you keep your money, not lose it. So the Pacific Northwest has to figure that out at a level that it's like, it doesn't matter how you think you feel about the police. You're going to have to figure out how to keep your money and not lose it. And also keep your cultural capital and not lose it. Young men have to think that they could one day find a nice young woman and get married. Without that kind of leap of faith, without that understanding that that's really possible, that there's a culture that will be there to back you up, that you don't have to worry about, like, dude just standing around someplace, like, malingering, and you're like, what is going on? Why do you always have to worry about malingering oddballs? Why do you have to worry about malingering oddballs? And that's an aspect of the culture, that this idea, there's like people doing something like, this is a great sign. So you guys saw me show you this building many times, this huge former car dealership. Well, something is happening. Redoing the windows. That's big. That's a big spend. That's not a small spend right now on doing this kind of work. So this is very encouraging. No signage up yet. You could probably look it up and find out. That's a very good sign. I like that a lot. I wouldn't even be surprised if that was going to become a Tesla dealership. I'm not even kidding. This is one of those areas where you can find a lot of well-paid men who will buy a Tesla. Still, now how these people are pulling this off, I don't know. Maybe it's because of scarcity. But I mean, some of these designs are actually quite nice. Yeah. Yeah, I actually like especially this stretch of them. I like those sets of designs. Those are pretty nice. But yeah, it's and so actually it's what time is it? So it's 9:30. This is one of the major stretches of Eugene. And so you get an idea of the kind of traffic coming from the university area, coming in from out of town, that would come through downtown and go out to outlying, kind of not outlying, but less dense area. But this is the traffic that comes kind of through from the east, and it's just at 9:30. This is what you're seeing. So it's not bad, how quiet it is, but it can be worrying. And you can see how, like, when I show you how there's, like, say, buildings like this that are still up for lease and for sale, you could see, yes, that has a law building, but you could see there's a plate open for an office. I bet there's people who now and then see these and are like, isn't that the fried chicken man? But you see, it's like when you look into trying to do something different, and then you find, like, that on YouTube people are talking about this odd trend against it, or that, oh, well, you know, it's kind of changing into this industry or that industry. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, let me just save a little bit more money and see what happens. And then boom, you know, it's gone, as Metal Leo would say. Now, the idea that there's programs, lots of programs, lots of programs to help people. So this is a good example at this stage. The Democratic National Convention had all this talk about hope, and it's because really it's the hopelessness that has infected kind of the melancholia, the left. They tend to be people who are going to be depressives and sad in a lot of cases, because that's why there's this idea of our hope is in Jesus for Christians, because you can't have hope in the world. That it has to be something that transcends the world. And that's the whole issue of hope. When people secularize transcendent ideas, they start to, they fall victim to despair very easily. This is why, to a great extent, I thought about how during the 90s, people who were more of a liberal leaning, who now are kind of these Gen X, you know, new writers and stuff, that a lot of people, or are just kind of, they don't want to consider themselves left, woke, progressive, they don't like it. A big part of it is because Gen X took on a lot of, like, you know, what is meditation, you know, people don't get, like, there's been a recent criticism by young writers of the thinking of people who I'm like, that guy's not that old. He wasn't born that long ago. You guys are criticizing somebody who's really not that old. And it was like, yeah, we're young and our thinking is more nuanced. And I'm like, you guys you weren't there to remember Tibet. You know, you weren't in the Tibetan meditation classes. When did you come to the Zen meditation meetings? You know, like, how many Tai Chi teachers have you had, asshole? You know, like, these people who, it's like, they think that they're like these amazingly amazingly fucking fascinating, and that they don't get, it's like, no, you've been raised to be shockingly boring, and it's really weird. It really blows Gen Xers away, where it's like, how is everything that you know, like, artificial, constructed by an advertising group? Like, how is it that nothing that you're into is actually, like, genuine, you know? Like, yeah, it's really weird. It's really, really weird. And I look back, and there's things that, like, Gen X, we were like that. But, I mean, just seriously, it's different. It's different. But this talk about the need for hope, that says a lot about this idea of low morale, that there's a cultural low morale in the Blue Enclaves. And it's just, there's just not, culture is culture. It's got to be, that it is real. You can't do something to it. It's got to thrive all on its own. And in the Blue Enclaves, there's something very wrong with it. Yeah. And so the other part about this was then the taxation part of it. Everything I've been showing you, I've been talking about how it takes, there we go, fleet nurse. Because it's getting to the point that there's this, there's at-home health care. So it's something I want to point out is nobody in Blue Enclaves, there's a very small number of extremely rich people. The Blue Enclaves are losing large corporations, like corporations that they were going to have some type of payment processing service for possibly even their services, or buying things via their websites, such as X. X had to leave California. There's no way these people could not have understood what they were doing. And this is a trend. This is a thing that's happened for a long time. Like, once there was the discussion that the Giants would leave San Francisco and go to San Diego, way back in the Willie Brown days. And somebody like me, who was from the city, I'm like, they're going to go to San Diego. I was like, fuck them. Let them, the San Diego Giants, please. Like, let's see it. And maybe now, but I mean, like, then, no. It was the biggest deal city that was on the come up was San Francisco, California. And it was in the Bay Area, and San Diego was having its own little boom, but it's like, no, it's the prestige isn't there. Because at that time, people from San Diego would move to San Francisco Bay Area. Yeah, the Willie Brown, governor era. And so, beyond that, what you don't have really tremendous amounts of people who just have money. There are not people with just money that can just do big money things. You see a lot of, this is actually kind of something that was hitting me. You might be able to see this behind me, that there's upper decks on this. That is a great construction type. Building a building like that is a great idea in the Northwest. Multiple tiers of balconies with awnings. And no one figures this out. Like, this building somehow figured this out, because it's supposed to be ultra luxury. They figured out, put awnings over balconies. Now, this was once relatively normal in a lot of houses in this area, but it became a luxury to actually be able to be on your porch. And so once you don't have people who will sit on their porch in the frequent rain, that's it. I mean, now you have this street without people on it. You have San Francisco, California. And that was always something. People who would visit me when I lived there, because to me it was normal, but people would visit me and they'd be like, there's something kind of weird about this place. And finally it hit me when I thought about when I would visit them in the Northwest, like, there's no porches. I'm like, there's no porches in the Bay Area. And there's no balconies, there's no porches, there's no place to sit and enjoy the environment. That San Francisco had eschewed that to the most luxurious types of houses and the most luxurious places, and space is always a premium. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. See, some places, they go back far enough that they still have a nice place that you could sit. People put couches and chairs out, things like that. That's totally normal here. But fewer and fewer and fewer places have such awnings, and so it becomes this unbelievably kind of sterile landscape of, like, you know there's people around, but you never see them. There's nothing that would sort of draw people out so that they'll deal with one another. Oh, here's an example of, like, all this is going to be replaced. It's probably on a cycle to be replaced. This is not cheap to have to do, and this happened not that long ago. I've only been in this neighborhood a handful of years at best, and I saw that get replaced. Yeah, and and then there's inclement, extremely cold weather that's hit the area that also does damage to the roads in ways that were just not expected, because it just doesn't get, we don't get snaps of extreme cold and snow and ice that often. Yeah, and so the Northwest has to start really thinking strategically about what if there's another economic hit of some sort, and very seriously. And also, a lot of people, a lot of Democrats don't understand. California is now engaging in a type of regulatory thing that, so because the different states have to honor certain kinds of regulations, so this is something that's happening now. You won't have trains to deliver food. California is regulating the trains to the point that these people are pleading with California to understand, like, what you want is unobtainium. The train that you want can't be built with the technology we have right now. And it's now this thing, and you see this a lot in the Northwest too. People who understand science so little that there's sort of this weird goofball, drug-addled, like, look that comes across the face. And, oh, we'll think of something. And you never understand, like, what happens when this, you could get people to admit that, well, by that logic, 2 + 2 is 5. And they'll go into some, well, maybe it is Grateful Dead, bro, you know. And so there is a dependency on the wrong kind of hope. Hope as a method in the real-time strategy of life. And so various things like this are starting to build up that are trends that it's like, you need to have now a defensive view of your own economy locally. How do you make sure things don't go totally tits up? You know, because otherwise, if you aren't ensuring that, if you're not trying to ensure that, if you're not trying to make sure things don't go terribly wrong, you might not really be planning realistically for the near future. If you're planning on, you're going to get more taxes because there's going to be all these smart, talented, no, there's nothing about what we're seeing from 20 years of collegiates that are saying the Northwest is going to be filled with geniuses who are going to come up with the unobtainium train to deal with California's new regulations. People have to understand what the word hope means, and hoping that at some point, you know, people who vote poorly will just come up with a miracle material to save everything. That's the wrong kind of hope. Don't mean to kill the morale. The potential for stability is here. But a real-time strategy. It's real-time strategy now, because Florida and Texas will eat your lunch. They'll gladly eat your lunch. Nevada will eat your lunch. Lots of red enclaves will eat your lunch. And yeah, so get it right.